In this video, we're going to talk about how to use the VLOOKUP formula in the approximate match case. So you can see I've just sort of clicked this button with VLOOKUP and shown all the different variables that go into a VLOOKUP formula. This last part, usually we would put a false, which would indicate an exact match. However, today we're going to look at the case where you would use true. And notice what it says for that. To find the closest match in the first column sorted in ascending order, use true. Or omit. That's the default, weirdly enough. Even though false would make more sense for the default, in my opinion, true is the default. That's why you always have to add false to the formula when you're using the VLOOKUP to look up text or other things in the way I would typically use the VLOOKUP formula anyway. However, the VLOOKUP formula is particularly useful in this case when you're trying to put numbers into bins like the ones you see here. So for instance, we have a range describing the beginnings of these bins with 5,000 increments. These are in thousands because these are car prices, which are in thousands. So you can see 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, etc., all the way up to 70. And basically what we want to do is we want to find where these prices fall within the ranges that would be described by this column of numbers. So what I've done is to describe what these numbers are how they're being interpreted in Excel, or how they're going to be interpreted as ranges, I've put sort of the end of the bin over here to show what happens. So all I've done here is taken the next number in the definition and subtracted 0.1 from it, subtracted $100 from it or whatever, to show roughly where the bin ends. So this goes from 0 to 4.9 thousand. This goes from 5 to 9.9 thousand. This goes from 10, etc. In actuality, these ranges go right up to before 5. So this goes right up to 4.999 into infinity, right before 5. And what I mean by that is, were I to look up the number 5, it would find 5. It would find it here. It would return this row. However, were I to look up the number 6, it would also return this row because 6 is less than 10, but more than 5. However, if I looked up 11, it would start here. It would say, oh, 10. Okay, I'm going to return 10 because 11 is greater than 10, but less than 15. So it'll always find the row, in the case of an approximate match, it will always find the row that is basically less than the number you're looking for, but that is right before the row that is greater than the number you're looking for. So obviously if I'm looking for 11, all these numbers are less than 11, but this one's greater than 11, so we would stop here. This would be the row we would return. So for instance, to use a real world example for this 17.7, it's going to look for 17, it's going to find 15, it's going to find 20. Okay, 20 is larger than 17, it will return this row. So that's why I've described this row as 15 to 19.9 basically, because that is the range that is the way Excel is interpreting this particular cell in this lookup table. So I'm going to go VLOOKUP, look up this price over here. I'm going to select the range, which would include the bin name over here. It's going to be three columns wide. Doesn't have to be, but it is in this case because that's how we set up the data. I'm going to lock that with F4, put a comma, and now I have to put 3 because when it finds the right range, it has to count over to find the bin name. I don't want it to return the end of bin. That would be 2, so I'm going to put 3 because I want it to return this column. And then here's the special part. I could put true. I could put false. That would be what we had before. I could actually leave this blank and default to true, but I'm just going to put in true to keep it clear and hit enter. Now you can see that this formula has done what we would have expected it to do. So for 31.6, it's looking up to 30. It's going to look at 35. 35 is bigger. It's going to go back to 30. It's going to return 30 to 4.9. Now I've used concatenate and other formulas to have these range names be dynamic. So in other words, I can actually change these and show you some real world examples of how this would change, how the bin that it selects would change based on what number we input here. So for instance, keep an eye on this cell over here as we work. This number is 17.7, and it's looking it up over here. It's finding 15. 20 is larger, so it returns this row. However, if I go here and say, let's make this 17, so that goes 15, 17, 25. Now the formula says 15 finds 17. 17 is still smaller than 17.7. It finds 17. It goes to the next one. That 25, that's bigger. Then it will return this range, actually, the 17 to to 25.9 range, which is what you see here. I'm going to turn this back to 20 because I want it to be the other way. I want it to be in $5,000 increments. And this turns back to what you would have seen before. So one side benefit of this, and there's a few different benefits to having the ability to put numbers into these sorts of bins for ranges. One side benefit, and there's other ways to do histograms, but it is in fact making histograms. Once again, you can do histograms faster through other methods, but if you've already made these price ranges, you can just very easily do a COUNTIF, or COUNTIFs with an S at the end. Count this whole range, lock that, and then find these bins over here. And we see there's no values that are that were given the 0 to 4.9 tag. So there's nothing under 5,000 here in this data set. But as I drag this down, you can see that, as I drag this formula down with a little black cross there, you can see now it has counted the number of items in each of these bins. And if I were to just conditionally format this, we can see we have a nice, this would be called a histogram, showing the number of variables, the number of values rather, that fall within each of these ranges. And we could just make a nice little histogram graph out of this if we wanted to. We could just go over here, and there you go. You have yourself a histogram showing how many values are in each of these numerical ranges. We could do a lot of work to make this graph look a lot better, but you get the point. That's a way to get at a histogram. There's better ways to get at a histogram, but if you're already doing the work of creating ranges with the VLOOKUP true formula, this is certainly one way to go about it. Okay, great. I hope this video was helpful. Please comment if you have any questions. Subscribe if you find videos like this helpful and want to see more. And I hope you join us next time.